overtime is necessary. So interview red flags. We have a saying that we use around Sage quite a bit, and we did not coin it, but it's something that I've used in my past for many years. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. If somebody has a lack of interest and enthusiasm in the interview, you better believe that you're going to see that when they come to work for you full time. If somebody is highly critical of a previous boss or company and all they can do is talk about what a terrible experience it was and how awful they treated you and so on and so forth, you better believe that they're going to bring that same level of critical talking to your company. If the first questions they ask are about salary or vacation days, how many vacation days do I have? Again, you're getting insight into who this person is and how they're going to operate in your company. If you want to look for eye contact, if they're canceling or rescheduling interviews, one time is a red flag, twice, unless there's an incredibly significant reason that you believe is plausible, we usually count candidates out at that point. So keep in mind, the way you show up, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. I can tell you, all of us have had experience with personal friends that maybe we've never worked with, but just based on knowing them in a personal capacity, we have a pretty good sense of how they show up at work. Because again, who we are is who we are. So you want to be aware of those cues and really be looking for that in between the lines of who is this person and how are they going to fit with my company. So rejecting candidates. So assuming that you've talked to a lot of different candidates, you've honed in on the ones you're particularly interested in, we always recommend anybody that you've phone screened, anybody that you've interviewed in person, to follow up. Follow up within a week. It's fine to contact them via telephone. We do not recommend sending an email. Voicemail message is okay from our perspective because people want to know, hey, I interviewed you. What are the next steps? Are there any next steps? However, we also recommend that you be cautious about how much information you share. For a variety of reasons, including legal ones, you just want to be careful. So it's just a sample conversation might be, hi Joe, this is Cara calling from Sage Consulting Associates. I just wanted to let you know that we've decided to move forward with another candidate for the marketing communications role. I really enjoyed speaking with you. I wish you all the best of luck in your job search and hope that maybe we'll have an opportunity to work together someday. I see that there was a question about letters being mailed to the candidates who were not selected. I think that is fine, and I think it is a volume issue. If obviously you phone screened 100 different people, then that may be the way you need to do it. Usually the way we recommend is if they've submitted their resume initially, and that might be hundreds of people, it's nice to let them know, hey, we got your resume, we're reviewing folks, we will get back to you within a week or two if we are interested. If you don't hear from us, it means that there were other candidates that were a better fit, because there's a point where volume becomes a challenge. But if you're doing phone screens or in-person interviews, from our perspective, it's better to give a quick call, and frankly, giving them a quick call probably takes less time than putting together a letter anyway, and from our perspective, it's more of a personal touch. But I don't, again, depending upon volumes, I think there is a place where letters might be a good approach. So Lily was mentioning that she used to work in HR and they had form rejection letters to send out to candidates, but a very brief message and nothing specific. So again, along the lines that we were talking about. So Lynn was asking about those potential candidates who want feedback on their interview when it was unsuccessful. This is a challenging one, and I will tell you, I personally am challenged with it because I come from a school where I want to give people as much candid information and feedback. I'm a very straight shooter in my own personal approach and style, and so this has caused me much angst over time because I want to give candid feedback. Actually, you might want to look at this area, you may want to explore this area. We had a candidate who was stronger in this area. But for legal purposes and for sort of long-term relationship purposes, this is something where you really do want to be cautious how much information you share. And so usually the way that we will handle those is to just say, We had a lot of different candidates. You had really solid skills in these areas, but unfortunately there were some candidates that were just a little bit of a better fit. And what we will sometimes do is try to point to more fact-based information. So this role, as you saw in the job description, specifically required that somebody have 5 to 7 years of financial services experience, and unfortunately you only have 3, and we had other candidates who had, you know, what the client was looking for in our case, because usually we're interviewing on behalf of a client. So I think that's one way where you can give some candid feedback, but again, you want to be really careful. So professional references, this is another area where we feel very strongly about this. We believe that it is always good to check professional references, no matter what the position is in the company. Professional references just give you additional insight. They can also help you if you've interviewed a candidate and there's a couple of red flags that were raised in the interview. You're not sure whether that's something to be concerned about or not. Professional references is a great way to dig in. The best time to do it is after you've decided, okay, these are the 2 candidates that are my finalists. You know, you're down to the very small few, but before you make the offer. So we recommend speaking with at least 2 professional references, including at least 1 former manager. You want to provide that professional reference with a quick overview of the job. But other than that, you just want to listen. You want to look for the subtle cues. So some of the things that we look for in professional references is how quickly does the reference return your call? When we have phenomenal candidates that we're considering, we may send an email or give a phone call to 3 or 4 professional references, and literally within the day, we hear back from all of them. And then we get them on the phone and they are just gushing and enthusiastic and consistent. You know, that tells us something about that particular candidate. If on the other hand you check professional references and they don't get back to you the first time, you have to follow up a second time. And again, you're looking for it across several professional references. You get them on the phone and they are pretty curt in their answers. They don't have a lot of information to give you, or they say, I'm sorry, but my company just doesn't allow professional references to be given, but yes, that person did work for me. Those are all red flags. Again, they may or may not be deal breakers, but there are absolutely clues to pay attention to. So some sample questions to ask for professional references. In what capacity did you work with X? What are Joe's main strengths? What are Joanna's main weaknesses? Would you hire Joanna again? How would you describe Joanna's style of work and personality? And then always follow up at the end with an open-ended question. Anything else that you think would be valuable for us to know to make a decision. And again, as I just referenced, if they state that their company's policy is to not provide references, in some large companies this is absolutely the policy, then one of the things you can do is ask if they can provide a personal reference instead, because that oftentimes they can do. So I understand that you can't provide a professional reference, but could you provide a personal reference? Did you enjoy this person, et cetera, et cetera? So there's some things that you can go ahead and ask for along those lines. So making the job offer. When you're presenting the offer via telephone, you want to sound excited, upbeat, and positive. This is a really big deal. You want to make sure you explain all components of the offer. Job title and responsibilities, the salary or the hourly rate, the work hours, the benefits, the telecommuting options, that the offer is predicated on background checks coming back clear. We recommend no matter what level of position that you run background checks, because you never know. And you'd be surprised how many candidates will have some type of conviction that, you know, they sounded great through the interview process, they gave you some great references, and that can end up being the big red flag that takes them out of the running. So all the offers that we extend are always predicated upon background checks coming back clear. You also want to give them a clear deadline for the job offer. We recommend 3 to 5 business days. Again, depending upon the position, less time, more time may make sense, but that's a good sort of rule of thumb. And we suggest after you have the phone conversation with the person that you do mail or email an offer letter so that they do have it in writing. Sylvia was asking for a resource for background checks. We use a company called Verify, but you can go online and there are a lot of companies that are out there. We're in a little bit of a unique situation in that we run a very high volume of background checks, so what we're looking for in a vendor is a little different than if you're running them onesies and twosies every now and again. Verify is the one that we use, but again, you can probably go on the internet and just do a search to see who they are. It's a fairly commoditized business. In other words, they're just taking the candidate's information and they are running it. They're then submitting it out to different states, to different levels, and then it's actually those states that are running it. And it looks like Lynn has some information. They use ADP and a state agency, so there are definitely resources out there. Thanks, Lynn. So here's again, this is very small. I'm not going to go into the detail, but I just wanted to give folks a sample offer letter that you could utilize if it was helpful, so that you had a sense of what that letter might look for. I'm sure you can also find some sample offer letters online, but this is sort of a part of the template that we use when we make offers, so that's something that you could utilize. And then in conclusion, before we jump into Q&A, I cannot stress enough, it is better to wait for the right employee than to hire right now. And I think anyone who has had extensive experience looking for and hiring employees has always had that time where they just wanted to move quickly. Maybe it didn't feel completely right, but they just felt like, I need someone now. And that is oftentimes, a recipe for disaster. I have my own personal war stories around that, but I know, having had those war stories, unless you really feel that it's the right person, wait. It is worth the time. So Lily was asking about temp to hire.